the Marketing Futurists podcast, Ep006. Mind-blowing inspiration to create and innovate. This is your Futurist advantage.
Welcome to the Marketing Futurists podcast, where your hosts, Mary Catherine Johnson and Kelly Garrett, chat with innovators who are keeping the human in marketing while driving the future of tech to give all of us a futurist advantage.
Welcome back, everyone. I am here today with a good friend, Nathalie Lussier of Ambition Ally. And she is someone who I think definitely always has her thoughts, light years ahead of us with marketing. She's someone I definitely think is a marketing futurist. And I'm just going to let her give us a little bit of background into where you've been, what you've been doing, and where you are now, kind of what brought you to where you are now with things.
Yeah, so I've always been a technology fan, if you will. So I started making my first websites when I was 12 years old. And I, built my school's website, went on to study software engineering in school. And I was really lucky because I got to be an intern in Silicon Valley and on Wall Street. So I definitely kind of saw things from that perspective. And when I graduated, I realized, those places are great, but that's not really where I see myself. So I started my first business right out of college, and I turned down a Wall Street job offer to do it. And I have to say that, the business that we have today is a software company, but I never could have started my software company right out of college. I had to take other steps first to learn about business, learn about marketing, learn about sales, and, understanding what people want and need before I could build something for them. So I'm kind of lucky that I didn't start this business first, because it probably would not have happened. So I started my first business online, and it was an online education company. So I was teaching people how to eat healthy. And that was just a passion of mine. And I realized I think I could do this. I had read about follow your passion. And that's really where I call it my training business. And I learned how to do marketing and digital strategy during that time. And then it kind of pivoted from there. And people started asking me for advice and to build websites and kind of go back to that technology root of mine. And that kind of spiraled into what we see today, which is our Ambition Ally company, which I run with my husband and a small team, a virtual team. And so today we develop all kinds of tools for mainly WordPress and tag-based CRMs like Entreport, ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft, Drip, and ConvertKit. So for membership sites, for list building, and really kind of taking together all the things that I learned running my education business and kind of putting that into software so people can kind of use the same strategies in their business.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that's so key that, you say that you couldn't have done this, your first business right off the gate. I think so many people get caught up in feeling like whatever their first business is like, this is it. This is what has to work and what has to be it. And I think one of the analogies that you use most often that I repeat to people a lot is the spiral staircase. Maybe can you tell everybody a little bit about that and how that plays in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that our businesses are a lot like a spiral staircase. And when I found myself a couple years into business and I was designing websites for clients, and I kind of realized, wow, I feel like I'm back in square one, because I was designing websites in high school, and I told myself I didn't want to do this as a career, because I wasn't very good back then at managing clients or any of that stuff. And when I kind of circled back, I realized, wow, I had a lot more experience to bring to this. I had a much different perspective. I felt like I was kind of higher up on that spiral staircase, and I was able to bring a lot more to my clients. And I was also better at, working with them, managing them, pricing, and, all of that stuff. So at that point, I had kind of got back to square one, but I was at a much higher level of doing a similar thing that I was before. And the same spiral happens over and over in my business. I find myself doing the thing that I've done before, but now it's at a different level, or I'm doing it in a different way, or there's like a new nuance to it. But it feels like the same thing over and over, but I'm just kind of growing. And I think that happens to all of us in business.
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, oh my goodness. I love that. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I have to say something. That analogy is so perfect and I love the fact that you talk about a spiral staircase, because usually we can't see around the next corner. Yes. That is just perfect. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was one of my all-time favorite analogies. I refer back to that often. So yeah, I mean, that kind of, you do talk a little bit about some of the obstacles you've encountered, but what else? What types of things have you come up with, especially with building a software business? I think that's at the height of technology.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, with software, things are like constantly changing and people are looking for the next thing all the time. But at the same time, you want to build something that's going to be solid and stable and that's not going to just chase the next cool thing. So that's been an interesting balance because I definitely have like so many ideas for what we could be doing, so many ideas for what we can add, what we can make better, what we can change, what we could do, all kinds of stuff. But my husband is actually really good at keeping us kind of on track and focused a little bit as opposed to just like bolting on a bunch of features. So that's been really good. But also, yeah, like working together with him and kind of finding our balance, both relationship and software and, building a business and kind of working with a virtual team. It's been interesting. And definitely I would say hiring is one of those tricky things that I think all of us, who end up hiring will have to go through ups and downs with, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't been there yet, I think a lot of people drag their feet in doing it for the first time because of the fears. And then if we have been there, yeah, there's a lot of things to learn and it just you're forced into it, whether you want to or not, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that husbands are those grounding people.
Yes.
Good jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Nathalie and her husband, Robin, I mean, you guys are an amazing, inspiring couple to watch because you have the technical, I mean, you know everything about the software. You have these amazing technical minds, but yet you're so balanced and you both bring such amazing contributions to your company. And it's very inspiring to watch. And I know I'm not alone in other people that know both of you and have seen that for sure.
Thank you.
Wow. So where do you see this going? I mean, I love the idea. You have such an amazing background. I mean, Wall Street and Silicon Valley. I mean, both sides of the country.
Yeah.
So, taking this and you talk about memberships in your specific site and the software that you develop, how do you see that changing with all of the new things? And I love what you said when you said, we don't want to just chase the latest new thing, the latest trend, if you will.
Right.
So how are you able to determine what's the trend and what you actually want to develop as a feature that's a benefit to your customers?
Yeah, we like to definitely co-create with our clients. And so we will take a lot of their feedback and, we ask them a lot. We're like, what do you want? Like, what do you think about this? What if we did this? And sometimes, the feedback we get is like, yes, like that would be amazing. And that's exactly what we want. And sometimes we see like the deeper thing that they're trying to accomplish is not necessarily that one little feature. So that's been helpful to kind of understand like the bigger picture of their business. Cause I feel like we use our own software. So that helps us to see like what's really important and what's not. So yeah, there's definitely times where people are like, oh, I wish we could do this. And then we're like, okay, cool. But, is that really going to change your business? Probably not. But so we try to kind of filter a little bit and put ourselves in their shoes. I think that's the biggest thing, that the more we can be our clients and understand how things are in their businesses, the better we are able to build our software for them. So that's definitely one thing that we do. And then in terms of like kind of where I see things going, I think that I try to look at outside of our industry. So we're definitely in a bit of a bubble, if you will, of like the online education or the online courses kind of space. So I like to look at businesses that are completely different. And I think some of the businesses I like to think about are the really big ones like Facebook, like Amazon, like Google, like what are they up to and what are they doing? And Apple, there's so many different companies that are doing big things. And like, we don't have to necessarily imitate what they're doing, but we can get inspired by kind of the concepts that they use. So for example, with Amazon, right? They have Amazon Prime. And so this is a recurring membership that you sign up for, and it actually incentivizes you to buy more things because you get free shipping, and you also get free, downloads and other stuff that you can watch, or streaming videos and stuff. So how can we do something similar in our businesses? So having sort of a low cost membership option, but giving them some free stuff as well to sample either before or during their membership, and also kind of just incentivizing them to go for more paid products. I think that we can totally emulate that, and we don't have to be Amazon to do it. We have the software and the tools to do that. It's just about applying a similar strategy for your business.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. I love that.
So, okay, that takes, for me anyway, that takes me an amazing direction. You mentioned two things, Amazon and Facebook both, and they have different strategies in that respect. So,
right.
One of the things, I'd like to tie those two things together if I can. You talked about asking your clients what they need and communicating with them, but yet at the same time keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening outside of just the education sphere or the online course sphere. So how do you mold those two things? Because your clients probably won't know everything that's coming before you do. You are in that space, or we are in that space. And especially looking at, say, Amazon and Facebook. So how do you determine, again, I'm trying to wrap my brain around how people like you, who are so incredible and create such an amazing things for us, how do you determine what to do and what not to do? And like Facebook, very different from Amazon. Facebook probably asks their customers some things, but then pushes where they want their customers to go. How do you balance that? How do you figure out which is better to do?
A great question.
Yeah, I think definitely with Facebook, with all of these companies, they're so data driven, right? So they know how much time people spend on their websites, which pages they go to, like what are they doing when they're there. So I think, the more data that we have too as business owners, the better we can make those decisions. So, in our software, Access Ally and Progress Ally, we try to, track, which pages do people go to, like what videos do they watch, what quizzes do they complete, and kind of start gathering some of that data so that we can make similar decisions and realize this course is doing really well. How can we get more people into this? Because we can notice if people take this one, they're more likely to take the second one, or, you can kind of get similar data. And that's kind of more from, the implementer or like the site owner. But I think it's the same when we're designing our software too. We try to see people never ask questions about this feature. Maybe that's not really important. Maybe people aren't really using that. And is it because we're not, educating them enough about it and telling them how cool it is? Or is it really just not that important for their business? So we do kind of try to gather as much data as possible. But yeah, going back to Facebook and Amazon, I think a lot of that, a lot of their power is from the community aspect, and even Amazon with the comments like that, or the reviews. I feel like that is a huge reason why they have been so successful. And Facebook too, everyone goes to connect with other people there, right? So I think that the more we can kind of build that into our, community building into our software, or depending on if you're using the software, into your membership, I think is also extremely key. So that's something that you can kind of use. And yes, there will probably be, decisions that you make that are not popular with your software or your members or whatnot. But, there's also decisions that you have to make as a business where it just makes sense financially, or it makes sense time-wise, where you can't physically build all the things you want to build and that kind of thing. So yeah, we try to, prioritize as much as we can with what's possible.
Wow. Great. So data. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would say balancing out, data, but also listening to what people say, because yes, the numbers do tell a lot of the story, but sometimes even with companies like Facebook, they want to optimize how much time you spend on their site. But if you talk to people who are addicted to Facebook, like I think all of us are, they might say, I wish I didn't spend so much time on Facebook. So they need to probably listen to that part of it too, and not just, their numbers. But I think there's definitely like both sides of that.
Right. So, being in the online marketing industry, I think there can be a lot of like love-hate going on what are some things that just drive you nuts about this industry?
Oh boy, there's a lot. But I would say some of the big ones are definitely, well, I'll talk about the software side of things first.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of hype around different software tools and like things that kind of promise massive results for, use this tool and you can experience, like a ATM machine that's like spitting out cash for you kind of thing, right? And and I think that it's just a huge disservice to everyone, because then people get kind of like burnt, or like, they're like really shy to invest again in software. And also the same goes with customer support. If they have a bad customer support experience with a software vendor, then they're a lot less likely to be nice when they email the next one. So I think that can be another thing that can cause some trouble. But yeah, I think, just being honest with what your software actually does, I think is really important. And that's what we try to do. And we do, it's a tricky balance, because you want to paint a picture of what's possible when you use it. But at the same time, you don't want to promise the moon and say, hey, it'll just click one button and then you're done, right? Like there's always some work involved in any new tool setup. So I think that's something that for me is kind of a tricky balance. And I see that other people may not go on the right end of as well. So there's definitely that. And then in the space too, I would say more kind of in the coaching space, but kind of related, is this whole concept of like income claim marketing. So I think that a lot of times people use their revenue or their income in their business to market themselves as being super successful and able to pass on similar results to their students or clients. And that's not always the case. And also it creates just a really like weird kind of false thing that people are chasing these gurus, when that's not really the mark of what you should be looking for. Like you should be looking for the results that you're going to get. And I think this is the case for courses and, coaches and all kinds of things. So that's another big pet peeve of mine for sure too.
Well, and that's only 50%, well, sometimes not even 50% of the equation. With a tool, it's just a tool. You have to use it correctly, and you have to put your own sweat into it. And I think there's a lot of people that don't want to do that for whatever reason, and just expect the tool to do all the work, or the program or the membership to do all of the work for them. For sure.
Yeah. Or they just need to hire someone to implement that tool, but then that person that they hire also won't know everything they know about their business. So, it's always a catch-22. It's always, taking what's in my head and plugging it into someone else, so that and that comes back to the whole hiring issue.
Yes.
How do I take
So
what's
true.
in my head? I started this business because I have this knowledge and this experience, and I've gone through my own spiral staircase, but that person that I'm hiring hasn't. So how do I plug all that in and not claim too much, and all the things you're talking about? I agree 100%. But I don't want to say just buyer beware, but come on, we all have to be savvy entrepreneurs and look at things not necessarily through rose-colored glasses or black glasses, either way, but to allow our glasses to meld to what we're looking at and bring our own common sense. Don't be in business if you don't have common sense. Please.
Yeah.
Or persistence too.
That's
my
goodness, yes.
The other half of it. You can't, everybody is going to run into problems. And when you do run into a problem, it's all about pushing through it and trying something else and just continuing. And that's, I see especially in the online coaching space, the people that I work with, they'll try something once and get crickets and give up, say, oh, this isn't the right thing. I shouldn't do this. And that's just a huge mistake, because that's going to happen at least once, if not multiple times for most people.
Yeah, but they don't hear about that usually. They usually only hear about the incredible, huge success, and they don't see everything that came before that and all the mistakes and failures that person had to go through. No one hits the ball out of the park the first time with no knowledge before it. It just doesn't happen. So I'm really curious about specifically courses, because I know our whole marketing culture is really has been pushing toward online courses specifically for a couple of years. And I know there are lots of people that are getting kind of burnt out on that and wondering whether this course is going to work because they've taken others and they either didn't put in the sweat that they needed to put in or it didn't speak to them. So they're a little gun shy to go to the next one. What do you think is really going to be the next rung on this staircase for online courses or for course creators?
That's a great question. I think that the more we can get people to actually come back to the membership site and complete the course, the more people are going to get results, right? I feel like I'm guilty of signing up for a course, signing in once or twice, and then you forget about it and you don't come back and you're like, you have the best intentions. And, sometimes too, that's all you needed. That's all you needed to get yourself to take action about something in that course. But for the most part, it would be great to have people actually completing, and they don't have to watch every single video and do every cheat sheet or anything like that, but at least getting enough that they can get into action on the topic and learn something and apply it in their business or in their life. I think that is key for me. And there's definitely ways to make that happen. So there's like gamification where people can earn points for, completing things, completing quizzes, unlocking, bonus stuff for taking action. So that to me is huge, and it's going to keep increasing over time. I think there's so much research happening right now with gamification. And if you're not familiar with the term, it basically just means making something into a game so that you want to do it more, you want to win, you want to achieve. And there's even historical kind of research that shows that we're wired to do that. And some of the first kind of games that we had were like berry picking, or like picking like fruits and vegetables and stuff, because that was for our survival. And it was like every time you got one, it was like, oh, cool, like I did it, right? And so it's a very similar thing that you can build into your online courses to make people feel like, oh, cool, like I completed a module, or I completed a quiz, or like I get this topic now, I can move on to the next one. So I think that's going to be really, really great. But then kind of the flip side. So what happens if somebody signs up but doesn't complete something or doesn't log in for a while? How can we follow up with them? And that's where kind of that tag automation with those CRMs comes in, because you can actually track that, right? So in the past, we really couldn't do much. There just wasn't technology to do that. But now with Access Ally and with a bunch of other tools with these CRMs, you can say, hey, this person hasn't logged in a week. That's probably not a good sign. Let's, send them a couple emails, bring them back in. And even you can incentivize them with points or with other stuff for coming back and re-engaging with your course. And then definitely, I think the things that we already talked about, like community, is huge. I think when people work together with other people to go through a course or a program, it really increases their odds of, sticking with it and completing. And, when they feel like they've made friends, they're on that journey together, I think that really helps a lot too. And there's definitely things you can do as a program leader. So you can do live things, you can do things where people have to show up, so they're not just going to disappear off the face of the earth. And I think that makes a huge difference too. So there's definitely a ton of different possibilities to improve that experience, and also just to treat people differently. I think that, before we would just have like, okay, the content is coming out, on week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, but how about we let people go at their own pace, right? And let them, if they're going faster, they can go faster. If they're a little bit slower, that's okay. We'll just kind of keep up with them and make sure they don't completely disappear. And that really helps people feel like, okay, yeah, like I can fit this into my life, because I think we're all really busy. But when we sign up for something, we have this goal in mind, or this, outcome that we're really wanting to achieve. So how can we make that possible for people? I think that is the bigger question.
Absolutely. So I want to go back a little bit, because as you're saying all of this, and I know this software really intimately, so I can visualize all these things happening. But I also was around when you released the very first version of it, and I remember, just take us back there, and like how did you just have the insight to know that this is what needs to happen? Because I know that was part of the vision from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But how did you have that wisdom?
Yeah, so when we first built it, so completely going way back to the beginning. So we were using a different, plugin on our WordPress website to run our membership site, and we were on a different hosting platform. And every night I would wake up in the morning and our website had been locked down from our host because there were too many login attempts and they thought that people were hacking our website. But it's just that we had a lot of members that were free members for our list building challenge. So we had, I think, like 10,000 people. So they were logging in almost every day to go through their challenge. And then we realized, okay, we need a different tool. This is not working. Like we knew it was the tool causing the problem. So we just said, okay, well, let's just whip it up. Like, it can't be that hard. So we just built it.
Famous last words.
Right. We built it for ourselves. And early, it was pretty simple in the beginning. So it pretty much just, protected the content, created a password and sent it to people. But then we realized like, okay, wow, like, there's a lot more that we could do here. And we knew like we had other courses that people could pay for. So we realized like, okay, how can we show everything on like a dashboard or a hub area that people could see, the free content that they get when they sign up, but also the paid content that they could purchase. So we kind of designed this dashboard concept. And that was one of the first kind of things that we developed into it. And it ended up, making us sales. And we were like, wow, just putting like paid things beside a free thing was enough to get people to say yes and sign up. That's awesome. So then we kind of just kept going from there. And we were like, okay, how can we get people to come back? How can we get them to consume more of the content? How can we keep track of what they're actually doing? And I think that kind of data piece came in again. And we were like, do people get all the way through? Do they stop in one place? Is that something that we can improve? And we realized like there are things we can do to improve this experience. And especially because we had so many people going through, then we knew like, okay, yes, like people get stuck on day 10 or whatever. So that really helped us kind of continue to design those features. And the other thing too is that we listened to our customers, and when they were going through some of our paid courses, sometimes they were confused about which one they should take because there were just a lot of them. And this, I had like over time created a lot of different small courses. And I realized, okay, yeah, I get it. Because if you're kind of starting out in your business, you want to learn different topics. Maybe it's SEO, maybe it's social media, maybe it's Google Analytics. Like there's just a lot of stuff to learn. So I realized like, let's put together a quiz to ask them a couple of questions about where they're at and then guide them to the right next step. So then we built a quiz feature. So all of these things were kind of, like trying to understand what people were doing and kind of guiding them to the right next steps for them, and then building those features to kind of support that.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great way to do it. And I'm constantly in awe about watching that whole thing unfold. How, I remember when your first version came out, it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is going to solve so many problems that I've had with clients. And then watching it progress from there has just been fantastic.
Well, thank you.
And I can see, yeah, I agree 100%. And I can see that tying it into what you were talking about before, when we were talking about trying to keep people in the process and keep people coming back and gamifying it and that kind of thing. I was just thinking, could you have a process where you ask people when they first sign up, how are you at taking online courses? Are you you want to get in, get it done and binge it? Or are you a slow and steady kind of, so that they kind of bucket themselves or segment themselves
right.
based on their previous experience? Because you're basically telling them, we don't want to give you something that you won't respond to, because we want to make sure you get to the end and get what you signed up for. Do you have some kind of a structure for that? Or do you think that would be helpful?
I think that's a great idea. And yeah, there's definitely a way to do that too. With a quiz, again, you could just kind of like super quick, maybe 1 or 2 questions. And based on how they answer, then you tag them. And you could even show things differently in the membership site based on what tags they have. So you could say, hey, this person needs a little extra encouragement. Let's pump that up. Or this person's going to take their, they're just going to go through it really fast. So we don't need to any extra little,
pushes,
emails or pushes. Yeah. Nudges. Exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So your software already has that capability. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. All right, people, you heard that. I think you know where to go.
accessally.com.
Yeah. I was going to say hello.
On it for sure. Wow. So, okay. So, I think, yeah, absolutely. That's the future of of where membership sites are going for sure. And I think that's going to determine, gamification and community building and all those things are going to determine whether or not a course is successful because of the people taking it. If the people taking it are successful, then the course is successful. What pitfalls do you think there will be in the future? I mean, what things are you up against that are going to be difficult challenges to overcome?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. So I think that there are a lot of platforms for online courses that you can upload your content to, and you can kind of are competing with other people's content. So like Udemy and like other places where you upload beside other people, it's kind of like the place you go, and then you can choose which course you want to take. And I think that has advantages for the people who are on that platform because there's already a lot of people there, learners who are going to take those courses. But at the same time, as a business owner, if you want to build something long term, I think that it can be a sort of like an obstacle to go down that route, because you will want people in your own membership site and you will want them going through your experience and not kind of comparing and deciding between your course and someone else's. So yeah, the pitfall is getting people into your membership site and getting them to kind of stick with you, as opposed to being in kind of a marketplace where, they're going to get distracted and pulled into different people's businesses and directions. So I do think about that a lot, kind of this like split focus, if you will, of like just being pulled a lot in different places. And obviously everyone will have they'll be drawn to different people, and it's not like, they can only be in one course at one time, but at the same time, you don't want them to be completely lost once they do find you and then disappear, kind of thing. So that's one thing, is like, how can we get people back to our sites, and how can we be sort of that Google or that Amazon or Facebook kind of place that people log in a lot and really love what you've created for them.
Well, and doesn't that kind of go back to the basics of marketing in general? Know your audience, know who you really can focus on and help serve. And if you hit that, then that's all you need to worry about.
Yeah, I love that.
And also, I agree. When you put yourself next to someone in a marketplace of courses, that really doesn't give you much opportunity to showcase your uniqueness and what you bring to a specific niche or a specific market. You're just basically a box next to another box, and you can change the colors of the box. But it doesn't really show how you bring a uniqueness. So putting yourself next to all those other options isn't really a way to build a successful business. Speak to your uniqueness in your unique group of where your focus is, and that's the way to build a successful business. Yeah, I agree 100%. Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
So so if we're sitting out in the audience and we're thinking, wow, okay, memberships, we have all these options, allowing people to segment themselves, bucket themselves into where they need to go, giving them what they need, part of a community, all those things. What tool would you suggest people in the audience might use, or a tip that you have to give them the futurist advantage? Because that's what we're all looking for. We're all looking for not just that next thing that we can grab onto that's just a fad, but really to give us an advantage for ourselves and our customers. Do you have a tip for them?
Yeah, so I think the tip is sort of like a mindset type tip. So I would say that thinking about it from the customer journey perspective is the way to go. So it could be a membership site, it could be an email sequence, it could be Messenger on Facebook, it could be, whatever you want it to be. But I think the important thing is thinking about where your customers are when they first kind of get in touch with you and where are they going next. I think the more we can say what's next for my customers, the better we can serve them and be there when they need us again, right? Or when they're ready for that next step. So yeah, asking what's next. And that could be, if it's an online course that you have, maybe what's the next online course? If it's maybe they start off with an online course and then there's something that's in person, or maybe it's they start off on Messenger and then they join a live thing. I don't know, like, a Facebook Live or whatever. So just thinking about like what's next for these people and how can we move through their journey with them and kind of like walk beside them and help them with their goals and on their journey. And I think the more we can think about it that way, then we can design those experiences that are going to help them achieve their goals and do the things that we promise that we can do, right? So I think that that to me is huge. And I think it's more of a mindset thing than like a tool or a tech thing. But I think that is the future of marketing because, we are doing this to help people. And I think that the more we can remind ourselves of that, then we'll find the right tools, we'll find the right ways to do it, as long as we're focused on their kind of big goals or big outcomes.
Mm-hmm. It's all about the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And I just got to tell you, I just had an amazing realization when you were talking and saying that, because we can look at these tools that we have available to us, and whether they're a fad or not, or Facebook or Amazon or whatever, but exactly what you just said is walking along in the journey with our customers. We can look, because we are in marketing, and if we are keeping up with what's happening, we're seeing all of the different things that are available to us, the different tools. And if we look at those different tools and go, okay, in my customer's journey, how would that tool benefit my customer in the next step that they're getting ready to take? So we can look at it two ways. We can look at what's their next step and what tool can I use to help them get there. And we can also look at it the other way and say, wow, there's an amazing tool. How can that help my customer in the next step in their journey? We can look at it from both sides and really determine what is the best next step, or what is the best next tool to use. That's a great way to look at it. Wow. You just blew my mind.
Yes, I do love that. Well, Nathalie, thank you so much for taking time this morning and talking to us. I think we all have just some amazing ideas and things to go and do now and get the best, get the best results for our customers and make the journey something that they can really benefit from.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It's been amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited for everyone to take all these ideas into the future and really see what they create. It's going to be awesome.
Get your Futurist advantage by joining our Facebook group at marketingfuturist.co/group and tune in for our next journey into the future of marketing.